Today we're going to be talking about prototype weapons in Finland during World War II, especially submachine guns. I've listed different weapons we're going to go through today here. The Suomi KP42, KP44, Aimolahti 43, M44 Flamethrower as well. As per usual, the information for this video can be found at the Jaeger Platoon website, and huge thanks to the author over there. During the Winter War and the Continuation War, Finland mainly used the M31 in Suomi as the frontline soldiers' SMG. The Suomi served with great distinction and to this day still carries a good reputation. Besides the Suomis, a whole slew of different captured and panic-bought guns from the Winter War were used. These include the PPD-34, PPD-34-38, PPD-40, PPSH-41, PPS-42, PPS-43, the Swiss MKMS, the German MP-28 Schmeisser, the MP-38, and the MP-40. But this video is all about the guns that very few have heard of, and with no further ado, enter the M42 Suomi. Now, the M42 Suomi, pictured here on the right, was an independent venture on the part of the Tikkakoski factory in Finland. The Finnish army never put out a request for it, but the manufacturer thought that maybe they could cut down on the production costs and manufacturing time of the original M31. And while they were at it, maybe improve some of the features and ergonomics of it. Now the Suomi, the M31, is often called in gun lore a first-gen submachine gun, which includes the trademark milled metal parts and craftsmanship. So if you compare the images there on the right, you can see a few ones that are easy to pick out, the fire selector and screws sticking out at the bottom, no muzzle brake and so on. And here's a full list of the differences between the M42 or KP42 versus the M31 or KP31. So the KP42 had a simplified barrel jacket attachment point. It had a simpler rear sight, improved front sight with the addition of ears or wings to the front sight leaf. It had enlarged trigger guard for use with winter gloves or mittens, and relocation of the selector switch we can see here on the right side. It had a better angle on the pistol grip, so it was more like a pistol grip, and the attachment of the stock to the receiver, yeah, as we said, screw-in pistol grip, and the muzzle brake, it's gone. So why did it stay as a prototype? Well, the fundamental flaw from a production standpoint was still not addressed, which is the fact that it still used a heck of a lot of mill parts instead of stamped steel or something like that. Now the M42 was studied by the Ordnance Department, but the decision was made in early 1944 not to adopt it. This was on the grounds that it would slow down production to switch to a new model, and it wouldn't save enough time, money, or resources to justify the switch. The AL-43 is something. The terms used to describe it range from light machine gun to submachine gun / light machine gun to general weapon of the infantry. In essence, it's a first-generation assault weapon, but it is based on the Suomi submachine gun. It uses a unique intermediate cartridge, and it has a bipod. Hence, naming confusion. Some backstory. So in 1942, the Finns start to get information regarding the development of what would become the STG-44, including the new 792-33 Kurz cartridge. Now this didn't really interest the Ordnance Department, but it did interest the designer at VKT, Aimolahti. So he set out to create a new rifle using a new cartridge after the German model. The cartridge he created was the 9x35mm. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any pictures of them. And a small batch of ammo was produced as well. The firearm itself was based on his previous design, the proven M31, but this was no rechambering, and the gun used delayed blowback instead of the Suomi's direct blowback. A new magazine was obviously in order for the larger caliber, and that was based on the Thompson submachine gun's drum. The final design weighed over 5 kilos or 11 pounds, and a bipod was added to it. The 9x35mm cartridge was tested in October of 43 by comparing penetration of current service cartridges when shot into layered pine planks with air gaps in between. And here's the comparison. The 7.62x54R from a Mosin penetrated 15.8 inches of pine. The 9x19mm out of a Suomi M31 penetrated 5.2 inches of pine, and the 9x35 out of the AL43, aka the new one, penetrated 10.7 inches, so right up there in the middle. In 1944, prototype production for the AL43 was set up, as well as the tooling for the production of the 56 round drums for it. Now, Aimo Lahti was an employee of the VKT factory, but he had set out to make the AL43 as a private venture. And VKT didn't have the capacity to add any new production lines, while the ordnance department was focused more on getting ordered guns produced. Lahti had made the blueprints and the first few prototypes at the cost of the company, which almost got him court-martialed by the factory manager, Valjakka. The AL43 was generally liked by the ordnance department, but it was just not possible to set up production at that time. This led Lahti to inquire about non-rifle manufacturers like Partaterä Oy, which produced shaving razors, to produce the prototypes. The project was halted by the end of the war, and as a side note, when the Allied Control Commission demanded that Aimo Lahti turn over all of his designs, Lahti withheld the information about the AL43 since it had apparently slipped under their radar. The AL43 was way ahead of its time, but unfortunately, the realities of a war economy made it impossible to field. So, back to the drawing board, and our next victim is the M44 submachine gun. During the summer of 1943, a new type of submachine gun began to appear on the Soviet side, the PPS-42 and later the PPS-43. Now, this got the Finnish Ordnance Department a little bit hot and bothered. It looked like a 7-year-old had drawn it. It was crude, unrefined, but it had a set of characteristics that the Suomi just lacked. It was made from basically bent metal, like some super crude stamped steel. It could be produced at any factory, and it could be made incredibly quickly and for cents on the dollar. Just to give you some numbers, the machine hours required for a PPD-40, which is pretty much equivalent to the M31 in way of production, that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 6-point-something hours, and the machine hours required for a PPS-42 were 2.7, so cutting half, plus the removal of wooden parts. And the only issue was that the Soviets used a different caliber, the 7.62x25 Tokarev, and not the 9x19 Parabellum. Pretty much right after the first couple of PPS-42s were captured, the tinkering started, and by October of 43, a trial was put on for a captured PPS submachine gun that had been converted to 9mm. The results were pretty good. They were even good in comparison to the Suomi KP31s. So good, in fact, that for maybe the only time in this video, something was actually put into production. By this point, the PPS-43 had started to show up on the battlefield, and the design started to skew more in the direction of the 43 instead of the 42 originally. The M44 didn't turn out to be just a rechamber of the PPS-43, but it's pretty damn close. Some lugs here and there, and it uses Suomi magazines instead of the PPS magazines, but in reality, pretty much a straight up copy. Okay, so what happened? Well, guns take a long time to develop, and switching production during war is a complex task. There were 3 main gun manufacturers in Finland at the time: SA-kuva, VKT, or Valtion Kivääritehdas, and Tikkakoski. SA-kuva and VKT were already running at pretty much full capacity and couldn't take any new orders, leaving only the Tikkakoski plant as a contender. A new company appeared as well. It was called Oy Ammus, which also bid for the same contract of the M44, At the time, OE Ammus was producing ammunition for 20mm anti-air guns and 120mm mortars, but no small arms. There was a scramble to get the tooling set up, and interest overseas, especially from Romania and Sweden, was already growing. So far so good, but material shortages delayed the start of production to the summer of 1944. Tikkakoski was still in a good spot and had additional Swedish orders numbering I think 50,000 guns. Ammus Oy, on the other hand, had failed to secure materials and had severely overpriced their bid to more than the price of a Suomi and pretty much doubled the Tikkakoski price, kind of defeating the whole purpose of the weapon. Another problem was the fact that Tikkakoski was already an established player, and they were already making over 1,000 Suomis per month, and also the 70-round drums for them. The decision was made to move drum magazine production over to VKT in order to free up some industrial capacity at the Tikkakoski plant. In June of 1944, the Soviet offensive started, and priority of the new subgun was moved up. Mannerheim, the supreme commander of the Finnish army, approved an order for 50,000 M44s. But for some reason, this number first fell to 40,000, and that was at the hands of the defense minister, which also downsized the batches to 20,000 per lot. There were a lot of protests, but the order was placed for 20,000 rifles to Tikkakoski in August of 44, and later it was limited to 10,000 when the lack of materials at Tikkakoski became evident. Then another thing happened. The end of the continuation war in September of 44, but Tikkakoski kept at the task of fulfilling the order of 10,000 through 1945. And so we come to the end of the saga of the M44 in World War II. The gun would still be produced and fielded in small numbers after the war, but it failed to meet the deadline. Until the latter stages of the continuation war, Finland had used the Italian M40 and captured Soviet M41 rocks, flamethrowers, for their assault engineers. These were used in teams of two, one flamethrower operator and one submachine gunner as close protection, since the flamethrower kit was so bulky that no other sidearm besides a pistol could be used by the operator. Even with this two-man team setup, casualties of flamethrower operators were considerably higher than that of regular assault infantrymen. In 1943, a sergeant named Kuusinen came up with the idea of strapping a flamethrower onto the barrel jacket of an M31 subgun. This was in order to increase the lifespan capacity of the flamethrower operators. The idea bounced around in the Finnish bureaucracy void for a while, but at some point someone important enough saw the potential in it. In April of 44, the first prototype was tested in front of the Finnish GHQ. They were pleased with the results and the integration of existing equipment instead of new productions. Another production run was ordered for field testing, and field tested they were. Feedback from the field was they're lighter than the older models, but still heavy considering the short range of them, better ergonomics, good for storming trenches, bad for just about everything else. The gas vent needs to be reworked, leather carry sling needs to be less flammable, and if the nitrogen tank was filled to the brim, the flamethrower would run out of fuel before it ran out of nitrogen, which was considered a plus. Pre-production, the production of parts kits for 100 pieces of the M44 were ordered for July 44. Assembly started at Asevarikko 1. Same thing as the M44 submachine gun, the M44 flamethrower could not be fielded in time for the war to end. The project continued until October 44, and the weapon would be used in the Finnish army after the war, but on a rather small scale. That's it for the rifles today. Channel update to close out. Here are some topics I want to cover as soon as possible, and as usual, thank you to the author over at Jaeger Platoon. Check them out, I'll leave a link in the description, and I have sources for the images in the description as well. Alright, take care.